All right, so these are my brutally honest thoughts and criticisms and review of Marvel Rivals. Hi everybody, my name is Abby. Welcome to the video. You know on this channel that I always tend to keep it real. If I enjoy something, I call it out. If I don't enjoy something, I call it out. And as always, with anything that I approach, I try to be as fair as possible. And the same applies to my newest obsession, Marvel Rivals. I absolutely adore Marvel Rivals. We have a dedicated channel for that. Check it out. Quick sponsor over here, AbbyAZK. We got guides and lots more educational content coming to that channel. If you're interested, go check it out right now. Get that screen out the way. Put some gameplay on the screen. And let's start talking about some of the criticisms from Marvel Rivals. I think number one is no surprise to anybody, and that is that Marvel Rivals has a little bit of an optimization problem, and that's something that can be fixed. Now, I was in the alpha test, I was in the the numerous beta tests. We had 2 beta tests as well, and funnily enough, in beta 2, the optimization was much better than where we are at right now in live. So I don't know where things went wrong. Sometimes files and things happen when you're uploading them into the servers, blah blah whatever. I am not the too technical genius. That's for Iron Man to figure out with Jarvis, not me. But what I do know is that it does need an optimization, patch to make the game feel better and run it at better frames for a lot of different PCs. Now, I would say I have a decently strong PC, and even then, honestly, I max out at about 100 plus frames, but I'm toning it down to 90 frames so things can remain consistent and I can maintain the aim, because your aim actually does get messed up if your frames are going up and down a lot. So I've capped it at 90 frames and I'm kind of keeping it there. I might even just bring it down to 60. I don't know. Although as a player we shouldn't have to do that to have the best experience in Marvel Rivals. Now, next thing we're going to be talking about is the 3 roles in my honest thoughts, review, criticisms, blah blah of these roles. Let's not waste any time. I want to start with this first one because I think I'm going to give a very controversial take over here. I've been seeing a lot of the other, Overwatch community members, small, big, doesn't matter. I keep up with a lot of people, and one of the things that I've been seeing, at least from the bigger content creator side, is there's been some, rightful criticism to some of the vanguards in Marvel Rivals. These are the tank role. Now, they're saying that, there's some tanks that just feel clunky, and I do agree. For example, whenever Thor uses any of his abilities that utilizes the Thor Force, he actually has a 1-second delay before he can use any of the next abilities, which can feel a little bit awkward. Now, he has that issue. Captain America has, some people could argue he has a little bit too long cooldowns. However, Captain America doesn't necessarily bring in a lot of damage. Although he's a great tank to soak up damage, great tank to just kind of, annoy the front line, back line, do all this sort of thing. People sleep on Captain America. And another character people are sleeping on is how incredibly powerful the Incredible Hulk is. Hulk is also a pretty damn good tank. Regardless, there's some wonkiness in there. For example, Doctor Strange in the alpha and beta had a much faster fire rate and cooldown time on his E, where he could charge up his dark magic and disperse it to do AoE damage. It made him feel very fluid and possibly the most fun tank to play because he was really easy to pick up and he has a decently high skill ceiling to himself as well. Now, since then, they've made Doctor Strange much clunkier. I don't understand why. He is a very strong tank pick. He's probably the go-to tank that you want on your team usually most of the time. But it's a little bit awkward that if they were nerfing him for live, that they decide that, well, let's just make him clunkier. It just doesn't feel fun to use a lot of the time. Especially my biggest criticism when it comes to the vanguards for Doctor Strange specifically, I hate the fact that his reload takes 1 hour. I swear to God, this is Doctor Strange we're talking about. Why does he reconstruct his arm cellular structure and then decides to cast magic again? Why can't he just do it at a reasonably faster pace like he did before, and start keeping his DPS uptime and start interacting with the rest of the map? So that is one of the things that feels a little bit clunky. Yes, there are some tanks that do feel a little bit weird. I think for Hulk could have a faster charge time on his jump and when that jump comes online. I think the rest of the tanks are okay. Penny Parker's web zip can feel a little bit weird and clunky to use at times, but relatively most of the other tanks are pretty fine. Now, I think the reason the devs may have added some clunkiness into the kits here and there, like the 1-second delays are in certain abilities, like when Groot picks up his his walls, there's a little bit of a delay before you can interact with them again if the cooldown is up. I personally, and the same thing like we discussed with Thor, I personally think the reason that they've done that is, again, they want to keep some sort of a downtime on tank so that there's windows to interact with them so that tanks don't fully take over the game. Funnily enough, I actually kind of think that it is this clunkiness that sort of holds back the 3-3 comp in this game, 3 tanks, 3 supports, from really taking over. Now, I will talk about why 3-3 will not be taking over this game anytime soon in just a moment. We'll get there once we get to DPS. So overall, my rating is I've played all the tanks. I really enjoy all of them. And, honestly, they're not too bad. I do think some of the tanks could use a little bit more damage, though. I will be fair. I think I'm fine with some of them kind of just, being really good at tanking things. Like, Penny is an amazing, like, area denial, anti-dive tank. Like, Thor's a great brawler, like, space controller, off-tank, like, style. Although you can use him in a little bit of a main tank context, but you have to be very careful. Magneto's kind of solidified himself as the Zarya Sigma of the game. Doctor Strange is basically the Reinhardt, with Ursa's poke, I guess you could say. I don't want to compare them too much to Overwatch, but I'm just trying to, like, to anybody that doesn't necessarily play Marvel Rivals, kind of give them an idea of what that feels like. Now, I will say, like, Marvel Rivals is most unique tanks that do stand out, that don't necessarily have, like, Overwatch equivalents to me are, Captain America, the Hulk, Groot, Thor. Like, these are really unique kits that do their own thing. And what I don't like, in a certain way, is people try to apply Overwatch's concept onto the Vanguard. They're like, well, this guy doesn't play like what I play in Overwatch, so clearly he's bad. People were saying that for Hulk and Captain America. Turns out Captain America is an amazing anti-dive character, and Bruce Banner Hulk is also a pretty good dive and also anti-dive character when you know how to play him and push him to his skill ceiling. So it's kind of like the more and more days are going by, the more we're learning the game, the more we're kind of like, okay, I think we're understanding what Vanguard is meant to be. So if they can address some of the clunkiness, the Vanguards are really fun to play. They've done a great job with all these tanks. I honestly, like, I play all of them. They're so fun, except Groot. Like, Groot, I'd rather go to sleep with a ginormous stick up my, what, I don't want to complete that. So moving on to the next role that I want to talk about, my review, my criticisms, and everything like that, is going to be the support role. Now, I will be fair, guys. Like, I will be fair. I adore the support role. I think the support role is the most strongest role in this game, and people sleep on it because this, I don't know if this is a thing that just happens across games of these types with multiple roles. It doesn't matter if it's a shooter or not. Like, League of Legends has scenarios like this as well. In some cases, other games that I play, supports tend to be, wow, like, this really is, like, the most powerful role in the game when you know what you're doing. I don't know if that's just, like, a byproduct of when you do design these supports, where you do want to make them fun to play. You don't want them to be like, living bots that get run over. So I don't know, like, I guess it's maybe like a role thing that happens in games. So in order to keep it fun, we have to keep them a little bit in that area. Now, I will say that I think Marvel Rivals' strategists are not that bad, and they're a lot more easier to fix compared to some of the Overwatch support problems that we have. Now, for example, right now, the strongest meta supports are Luna Snow, Mantis, and Adam Warlock. Cloak and Dagger is debatable. They're strong, but they're definitely not, at that level where Luna Snow and Mantis are. Like, if you're basically new to the game or you're still learning the game, Jeff can be kind of a little bit of an annoying character, but he's definitely dropping off once you start climbing in rank. Rocket Raccoon as well, he's pretty mediocre, and Loki has an incredibly high skill ceiling to get proper value out of him. Seriously, very high skill ceiling on Loki. His 5-star difficulty is not a joke, So I really do like that. I've played all the supports, I played all the strategies, excuse me, and, I found myself playing Cloak and Dagger the most. I absolutely adored them. I really liked Adam Warlock. Honestly, Adam Warlock is, if you gave, like, Brigida's armor packs and, like, a budget rally on his shift, and then, like, Zenyatta's primary and alt-fire as his weaponry, that's basically what Adam Warlock is. He's so strong. People underestimate him, and he has Mercy's Mazres, so Adam Warlock, very fun character. So these guys, don't sleep on him. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea in terms of a character, but as a gameplay option, he's very fun. Cloak and Dagger as well, a C-tier character. Haha, see what I did there? A C-tier character with the Cloak and Dagger, but they are very fun to play and big standouts for me. Highly recommend them. I would say the support problem in this game is not that hard to address. In my personal opinion, excluding Jeff and Rocket, I think the healing across the board could use a little bit of a tone down, maybe just by 5% to start. And again, I do want to be careful with these characters when we do approach them. Luna Snow currently has the strongest ultimate in the game by far. It's crazy because you can even argue it's stronger than the res in this game. Who knew I would ever utter such words? Basically, she has a 12-second transcendence that she can also swap into a damage boost. The damage boost is pretty much never used. It's the fact that you have a 12-second transcendence with extremely high healing and very, very, very few options to actually counterplay it. Now, here's the thing. I'm okay if it's like pretty much a I win button, or we're gonna defend this button that Luna can bring up and do her thing. I'm okay with that. My only issue is, can we tone down the seconds it stays up? I think 12 seconds is way too much, right? We're used to Zenyatta's 8 seconds. I think Overwatch nailed it with the 8 seconds when the first time they did balance Transcendence way back in Overwatch 1, and they found a good spot for it. I think Luna Snow can follow in that footsteps as well. You know, Rivals can learn something from Overwatch. Overwatch can learn something from Rivals. So Luna Snow can definitely, you know, see her Transcendence go down to about 8 seconds, and I think that's a good middle ground to put her in, with a slight reduction on her damage. And maybe as a compensation, if they want to, we don't know how the dev team will balance this game, they can, you know, up her damage just a little bit, although her damage is actually pretty solid as well. Mantis is a difficult situation because, okay, me personally, I think Mantis at her core is a very fantastically made, very fun character. And I would say, I don't want to necessarily nerf her entire kit. However, if we want to address her heal uptime and the power that she gets with it, because she can also, you know, like her gimmick is that when you're healing, damage boosting your teammates, you're using up a resource meter. Well, I would rather like to look at, you know, maybe giving her, you know, the way you recharge the resource meter is by attacking other enemies with her projectiles, right? So you do have to be good at landing her shots to get her seeds to come back up. But again, the better you get at the game as a Mantis player, the better you are at doing that thing. Me personally, the only nerf that I would like to start with, I don't think Mantis's ult is as broken as people make it out to be. There's a variety of counterplay options. Now, I will say the fact that Mantis can also, while she's ulting, giving the over health, giving the movement boost, the fact that she can also then from there do her abilities and also shoot, I think that's where, okay, we're getting a little bit silly. So maybe some changes to Mantis that I'd like to see is when she's in her ultimate, like either we allow her to just damage boost and heal extra if she needs to, and she can't shoot the enemy, or just allow her to shoot and let the ult stay up a little bit. But then it becomes too similar to Luna Snow's ult, you know, and it's a little bit like, you know, they're trying to go for that variety that, yes, while you're, you know, giving your team overhealth and things like that, you can still do your own thing. So I do see what they are going for with her. So it's either they nerf the ultimate in that area, or in my opinion, hurt the resource meter, make it charge a little bit slower, and you know, make it so that it takes her like maybe about one or two more shots to charge it up, rather than, you know, where it's at right now. Although, like I said, me personally, I don't see Mantis as that much of a problem. I like her. I like both Luna and Mantis, but I would definitely say that Luna is the biggest standout comparatively compared to both of them. And I would argue that, if anything, Mantis is a great complementary support to Luna and Adam. Adam has a great team up with Mantis, but, you know, I just think Mantis is kind of like a byproduct support. I kind of want to see Luna and Adam lose a little bit of power and then see where we go from there. So in Adam's case, I think the damage reduction that he does with his shift, where he divides the damage across the board, or his healing with his E, basically his brickbacks, is incredibly high. I think that could go down just a little bit. So again, I'm not trying to take too much power away from these supports, maybe just tone it down by 5%. Now, which characters don't necessarily need a nerf in those departments, and one of this is a hot take. I'll get to the hot take in the end. I think 𝐒𝐿𝐾, Jeff, and Rocket are fine as is. Leave them alone for now. They're not massive standouts. They're fun to play and they kind of drop off. 𝐒𝐿𝐾's a great anti-dive character as well, but he can work in most other situations. But in most of the situations, Luna, Mantis, and Adam are better to have. I will say the blistering hot take is, I think leave Cloak and Dagger where they are. Cloak and Dagger is kind of like the Mercy in the game, where they can only really do one good thing at a time. Now, to be fair, daggers is healing daggers can actually spread out and attack or heal people in an AoE. But again, like, I feel like, you know, while she is my support main, I will say, so I, you know, I'm a little bit biased here. I don't necessarily think she needs any nerf. I love her gimmick. Her ultimate is really not that OP. She's strong in the neutral, but she has a little bit of an underwhelming ultimate. So I think Cloak and Dagger are actually like the perfect sweet spot for support. Like, they're the middle ground that, okay, they're very good. They're very, very good. Don't get me wrong, they're very good. But like, the more the game is evolving, and especially where we are right now in the meta that we're currently in, right now, the utility from Luna Snow and Mantis complements team comps way better than Cloak and Dagger. I know I put Cloak and Dagger on like a, you know, the god tier list where I put them with Thor. And I do stand by that. I think like once the meta changes from where it is right now, Cloak and Dagger will be the best support to play. The problem is we're kind of, you know, we're getting there. I'm going to talk about the meta comps as a whole and how to address them as I get to the duelist. So with that being said, now let's go to the duelist section, because we have a lot to talk about over here. Now, I'm not going to go through pretty much every duelist. I will only address the meta picks and the problems over there. the game has a massive roster of duelists, and in a weird way, I actually feel like certain duelists were made with just the concept and idea that in case certain comps become viable, we'd want this duelist to be the one to break it apart. Now, for example, Wolverine is an insane tank shredder, but he's garbage into squishies, which is why in quick play he's kind of bad, but in ranked, if he's in the right hands and you have some good practice on him, Wolverine is an absolute monster, but he's feeling that niche of like, well, he's the tank buster, right? Like, although I would say he does need a bit of a buff, like change the way his damage works on some squishies. Like, he is a little bit of a high risk, high reward character, but I do think his damage is, bafflingly pathetic against the smaller characters in the game. So he's a great tank buster, but horrible duelist overall compared to everybody else. Storm is the next standout. Storm was fantastic, but with the rise of hitscan, Storm is one of those characters that's really fallen off. She gets taken out way too easily, and pretty much anything that she does, Iron Man is doing it much better. Now, to be fair, I see Iron Man and Storm filling two different niches as the flyers in this game. I think Storm's niche is that she likes to kind of poke and, pressure from the front lines with the front line of her tanks and the other DPS. Iron Man kind of wants to take off angles or, force the enemy to split from those off angles by firing away, applying pressure with the unibeam into the backline. If you know what you're doing on Iron Man, you know the strats, you know how to work with your Hulk and Strange combo, you're going to be doing a lot on the character. So, these are some of the DPS that are like, relatively fine, like that I've spoken about so far, or some DPS that could use some help. Now, the meta DPS line, without a doubt, is Hela, Hawkeye, and then right behind them, in a little bit of an interesting limbo on herself, is Psylocke, who may also be a little bit silly. Now, we'll talk about all of them. Again, I'm trying to be fair. Now, Psylocke is my third most played character, so, I have to be fair, right? Like, it's one of those things where even if the characters I like are meta, I will call them out that, okay, I think this is a little bit silly. So, Hela, no damage fall off, incredible damage, insane fire rate, very fast, like, projectile that makes her feel like a hit scan. She can feel nearly uncontested. Even the characters that are meant to basically counter her, like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and even Psylocke, who can, or Star-Lord, that can try to close the distance and jump her. If she's good with her positioning, she's good with her movement and her stun, it can feel like a Hela can go uncontested. Like, it just feels like a Widowmaker on steroids. And one of the things we were worried about was Black Widow. But turns out Black Widow is actually kind of poo-poo in Marvel Rivals because of characters like, Hela just filling her niche, but much better. Now, moving on over between the sniper talk, the best sniper in the game by far is Hawkeye. Hawkeye's ability is insane. He has great mid-fight potential and, the one-shot potential. He's a very scary character in the right hands. He's an absolute monster, and he is the best DPS to play on Clint Tower's points 1 and 2. So, Hawkeye is another one of those characters where we might need to look at him and tone him down. In my opinion, the crit multiplier that Hawkeye gets maybe slowed the charge on that down a little bit, so he has to hold that up better and aim much better with it. Hawkeye is a little bit of a awkward character when we approach from a balancing perspective, because that's pretty much his entire thing. However, I think they can solve it, and they can reduce the power that Hawkeye and Hela do have. Because another problem with Hela and Hawkeye is when it's like you can deal with them with characters like Spider-Man, a good Scarlet Witch or Psylocke flank, a Black Panther jump, a Star-Lord or Magic entering onto them, even a Wolverine finding their way onto the characters. The problem isn't that these flankers can't jump on them. The problem is like once you start playing against really good support lines, the healing in this game is so strong that even if you've gotten successful flanks with the flankers, Hela and Hawkeye are going to tear you apart because they're just not dying. And that's going to be now addressing the wider game issue, is that Marvel Rivals does have a sustainability problem. So we do need to look at perhaps toning down healing in this game. Now, to be fair, the devs have said in their own words that they kind of want each role to have some form of extremities, but they will be looking at certain things or certain areas where, characters are overlapping those extremities, right? So Hela and Hawkeye by far are in that DPS role where they are standing out as a sore thumb that, okay, like everybody's OP, so nobody is, but Hela and Hawkeye are a little bit on the next level. So let's have a quick look at them. Now, the one that's been on the rise as well as more and more people learn her is Psylocke. Again, I did a fantastic Psylocke guide on my channel over here, so if you want to check it out on the Marvel Rivals channel, feel free. But Psylocke is a little bit silly. The fact that she pretty much has next to no fall off on her weapon really allows her to even excel as a poke duelist, which I don't think should be her niche. Like, her entire kit is designed that, well, I want to set myself up into getting into the backline, finding isolated targets. But with her amazing poke potential, 𝐒𝐈𝐈 can actually do a really good job of even taking care of characters like Iron Man and Star-Lord, who's trying to play in the skybox and things like that. So maybe look at the damage fall off on 𝐒𝐈𝐿𝐼's primary fire to tone down her power. Otherwise, I think she's fine. Like overall she's okay. I do find her ultimate a little bit silly because it's 90% of the time almost a guaranteed team fight win, because she can just use it to take out the backline for free and you can't really outplay her, and the one window to outplay her is extremely tiny. So we do need to look into that. I think the rest of the DPS roster are actually pretty fine. And the final thing that I want to talk about, I will talk about this in a bigger video soon, but the devs have prepared certain characters to deal with multi-tank based comps. Like I spoke about Wolverine earlier, another character that's insane at breaking apart comps, but is a very bad, or well, debatably bad duelist, is Moon Knight. Moon Knight really loves it when the enemy team is grouped up, because his boomerangs are going to bounce off one target to another, forcing the enemy team to either split up, or if they play close together, he's just going to destroy them with his boomerangs without even having to put down the 𝐒𝐬𝐿, which is like an anchor that allows the boomerang to find another thing to bounce off of and eliminate the target. So, Moon Knight's niche is kind of like he is an insane tank destroyer. And that's something that I found very interesting with the way that they did make Moon Knight. Was like, it's as if they were thinking like, okay, if we ever had a 3-3 comp, this guy is the guy that's going to tear it apart. And again, same thing with his ultimate, where it's like if everybody's grouped up in a certain spot, the 𝐒𝐬𝐿 goes out to pull them in even closer, and then his ult just drops down all these fists and slaps, and Khonshu just destroys them. So they really were thinking about the different ways, like in the off chance that we do get a 3-3 meta, like what characters can deal with it. So Wolverine, Moon Knight, I think these are characters that are very good at dealing with that. Obviously, like I have to mention the fact that Hawkeye and Hela themselves are very good at dealing with tanks as well. Iron Man is a great tank shredder as well. Squirrel Girl as well can be a great tank shredder. So in my personal opinion, like I don't see a multi-tank composition taking over the game anytime soon from a 3-3 perspective. I will say that perhaps 3 supports, 2 DPS and 1 tank, or 2 tank and 1 DPS and 3 supports, that could potentially take over other than the usual 2-2 comp, because 3 supports can feel extremely overwhelming in the game, right? You can tear it apart. Supports don't necessarily have an answer to Iron Man and certain other DPS. I will be fair to both sides. Like there's not much like supports can do if Iron Man goes to the sky and starts, tearing them apart, or, Black Panther gets a nice setup with his team. But I will say that sometimes if your team isn't coordinated, it can feel overwhelming that, oh my god, Luna Snow, Mantis, and Cloak and Dagger, please, they're too strong when like together, like, and it's just that people are not abusing them together enough to realize it just yet. So I will say that I do appreciate Marvel Rivals' approach, where the one thing they're doing right now is something that Overwatch is not doing right now, is they are not afraid to allow their DPS to be strong and allow them to also be pressure creators and like be able to carry team fights, because it takes stress off of the tank. Because in a way, if your enemy team is focusing on your tank too much and you're playing these characters that have the potential burst combos to take people out and things like that, then you can divide the stress. Now we've been playing a lot of ranked, in a lot of cases our tank playmaker, sometimes he's solo tanking, but he has said that he doesn't feel like it's a bad thing for him to solo tank, because he feels like when he has the 3 DPS, the enemy double tank comps are pushing back much faster than he is, because there's so much damage and pressure coming from the different DPS that are being played. Usually we got that Moon Knight, Iron Man, Star-Lord, Winter Soldier, like pressure coming in onto 2 tanks, and they're like pushing back really quick. So it remains to be seen where Marvel Rivals goes from here. We are still waiting for the first ever Marvel Rivals balance patch that I will review on this channel under a fair light as always. So Marvel Rivals still gets a very good thumbs up from me. It is an amazing, really fun 10 out of 10 game. You should seriously try it if you haven't. They have very small few problems to address. TLDR, optimization patch, look at sustainability, look at some characters with a bit too much damage like Hela, Hawkeye, and maybe 𝐶𝐿𝐼 could use the fall off nerf. Other than that, most of the DPS are fine. They fill different niches. They're not all generalists. There's like situations where you can and cannot play them, but you can sometimes make them work pretty much anywhere if you can call for it and your team works with you. Now, with that being said, everybody, I would like to hear your Marvel Rivals thoughts, opinions, and criticisms down below. What do you think of the game so far? I'm enjoying it a lot, grinding it a lot, and I'm looking forward to reviewing the 6v6 patch from Overwatch later tonight. So double upload day, yay! With that being said, see you later.